Right, welcome along everybody right around the world. I hope you have had a fantastic day's worth of trading. This is going to be a Wednesday afternoon market recap. I'll begin with the Nasdaq and then move into a select few individual companies which I think you should be keeping a very close eye on based off some of the price patterns which we are seeing. I'm unsure as to how long this recording will go for, but there is quite a lot to recap, and what I'm going to do is just simply move straight into the overall analysis. I'll begin with the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq today closed up just over 40 points, a very interesting type of gap, again presenting itself at a macro resistance area. You can obviously see the difference on my screen between Tuesday's trading session over here, this really nice engulfing candlestick pattern, which we saw up around this macro resistance area, and then of course the resulting gap, which we saw during today's session. This is an extremely bullish continuation signal when it pronounces itself at macro resistance, which is exactly what it has done. What we say in the world of technical analysis truly is location, location, location when it comes to chart patterns, candlestick patterns, and also gap patterns. And all three at this particular point on the Nasdaq are leading us to believe that this market is exceptionally strong. It has been the final market really to confirm the breakouts which have most recently happened on the industrial average. You can see on my screen, if I bring this particular chart up, you can see we're just gaining a little bit of traction around this upper limit over here, but the overall the bullish trend is continuing. The same is true for the S&P 500, again just blowing through resistance. This is just continuing on its bullish ways, but closing up just over 13 points. Another very healthy day for the S&P 500. But just relating this and linking this back to the Nasdaq, when you see this type of gap, it is an exceptionally strong bullish gap. Again, over the weekend upcoming, I am going to break down these types of gaps. It's also coinciding with a lot of gaps on individual companies as well. This is what we call a measuring gap. Okay, and generally it signifies half of the bullish move. So what I'll be doing is I'll be breaking down the wave rotations of this bullish trend to try and find an area of confluence at higher prices as to where this market should trend to if in fact this is going to be a legitimate breakout. Now again, very similar to individual companies, is that when you see these gap breakouts, oftentimes the gaps will inevitably fill, and you have to be open-minded at least to assume that that is a possibility. So although I am speaking in a very molecular sense, a very minor level sense of the overall arching trend, it would not surprise me, so to speak, to see this market pull back if it chooses to do so, to close this gap before, of course, continuing on its bullish ways. That's not to signify whatsoever that we are starting to change our rhetoric on the overall markets. We have been very much so bullish for quite some time, and again, the Nasdaq, the final piece of the jigsaw, so to speak, has just confirmed the bullish breakout. You can see the CCI is still holding above 147. The ADX is elevated. It likes the trend. We're seeing gap continuation patterns all over the place. This is making us exceptionally happy because we have got a number of positions already open on the Nasdaq. We've got a number of positions already open on the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and the further these markets continue, of course, those long-term core positions, as you can see on the Nasdaq as well, at 2453 and also 2458, they're going to continue to snowball and make us some pretty decent profits just with the overall exposure to the actual indices themselves. Now, continuing on with the discussion, Facebook is something that we've been keeping a very close eye on. You can see today we saw a very strong candlestick throughout the session. We were up just shy of 166. This was again adding to the $5.50 profitable close that we saw on Tuesday. We were up another $1.28. I wouldn't be messing around with this trade. I'm quite happy with the overall profit. Again, we're pushing up more or less into about $6-7 territory right now, and that is a fantastic return on those in terms of intrinsic value building into those call option derivatives, which is fantastic. I'd be looking to pretty much liquidate this position if we flinch below Wednesday's candlestick. I'm not here to sort of play around with Facebook any longer. This has been an exceptionally strong breakout, and I'm simply going to close this out even if it is a number of days prior to earnings. Now, continuing on with that discussion as well, I might as well bring up this secondary watch list that I have been walking through. A stock which we were paying attention to for a number of weeks now has been Walt Disney, and we've been coming to the conclusion that we are drilling a base. Essentially what we're doing is retesting support, and we had a trigger over here at 105.70. This was actually dating back to late June and also the beginning of July. Now again, you can see the pattern itself starting to materialize. We've seen two very strong individual candlesticks on Tuesday and also Wednesday. You can see we had a really nice engulfing pattern on Tuesday. We've seen a gap continuation flow through to Wednesday's trading session, up $1.07. It's only a matter of time for Disney to come up and sort of hit our 108.21 target. So that's something you should be paying attention to. Home Depot is also moving sideways. It hasn't really triggered any trade whatsoever. But that's also another potential trade, by the way. I mean, I don't think I've spoken about HD all that much. I mean, personally, I'm waiting for about a 155 break of this pivot over here. Given the market's bullish type of trend and continuation, I assume that HD is going to run up to about $158.84. Please keep that on your radar moving forward. Also, in our pro analysis list, let me just bring up a couple of these stocks. First of all, Goldman Sachs. I spoke about this in the pre-market today. Pay attention to this pivot point just here. I've already sort of broke down the 220 pivot, also the 222 pivot. Somewhere in this general location, we are expecting some form of a green box, a support area to sort of support price and potentially see this break. And when I say break, I'm talking about the bullish conclusion in terms of price action. Now, I don't have a short on this trade, nor do I have a long on this trade at the moment. What I'm simply doing is allowing Goldman Sachs to prove to me that it wants to move higher. If it chooses to do so, and the beauty in this is that by using conditional orders, we can await for price at least, or like to give us the confirmation of price moving in our direction before entering into these trades. So although we haven't broken above 231.22, this is a trade in progress, which I am keeping very close sort of attention to. We've got a perfect doji, which has just shown up on Wednesday, which is relatively interesting as well. It's still an elevated volume, but we're also respecting this upper trend line, which is very, very important to note. Now, continuing on the discussion, IBM has broken down. It did close below 148.09. We didn't sort of set up that hammer potential candlestick at support, nor do we get a really long day Morobozu candlestick. If I zoom out and show you this, personally, I'm not in IBM. The market itself is relatively bullish, and generally, I don't like to trade counter trend to the overall prevailing trend of the macro market, but there is the potential for this to move down to about 140.94. That shouldn't surprise anyone. However, it's up to you whether or not you place the trade. There is still a little bit of support all the way over here dating back to October and also November 2016 that you should be observant of. And again, just personally, and just to share my own personal thoughts with you, I don't feel comfortable looking for shorts in a market that is so aggressively strong. All right, and I think that should sit quite comfortably with you also. On top of that, we have COP, and this is another stock that I've been speaking about, holding at the green rectangular box of support. The support level down here just around and really right around $43 a share. Another engulfing candlestick pattern today has just suggested that, again, it's only a matter of time until we start to see a material move to the upside. The same is true for CVX. You can see another bullish candlestick over here. We're just building out and sort of gaining a little bit of traction. It does take a little bit of time. It takes time for these things to eventuate, but it is relatively clear at this particular point that this is going to be some form of a basing pattern. You are going to see prices oscillate higher. Of course, this is all contingent leading into the earnings announcement, because once that announcement does come out, it is relatively unknown as to which direction, or at least the response of traders or active market participants is going to be to that relevant or respective earnings announcement. So please pay attention to that. We also have Apple. It's still continuing higher above that 145 initial entry, a secondary entry at 148.44. So that's looking quite healthy as well. Amazon is breaking above that level. Personally, I'm not in this. It's too close to earnings, so there's just simply not enough time for me personally to hold on to this prior to earnings. I'm also not in Boeing Airlines, but there are a lot of people in this from 206. We're printing at 210.88, so that's a pretty healthy trade for a lot of people as well, which is really, I'm quite proud of as well. Caterpillar's moving into earnings, so it is holding this green rectangular box. If only we didn't have earnings, that would be another fantastic trade. I've recapped COP, CVX. Google again is another stock which is moving up above our pivot here at 968.70. It's just continuing. It's printing at 992.77, so that's all right. I'd be looking to liquidate this if you're in it again prior to earnings. Earnings is expected on Monday, so I mean, this is something you need to leg out of by Friday if you are in there. That's some pretty decent profit as well. Outside of that, everyone, I mean, Netflix is the only final stock really that has technically triggered. It comes down to your own parameters in terms of risk. I mean, what I was speaking about earlier today is that if you want to leg into this trade, you need to have a stop below at least Tuesday's candle. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself at this particular time. But you can see this upper wick which has developed on Netflix. Generally what you want to see is when you see such a long day Morobozu candlestick after quite sort of an airy gap to the upside or even to the downside, you want to give it a little bit of time to sort of air out for the market noise to sort of have its way with immediate price action before using the structure of those candlesticks before legging into it. So Netflix is still quite healthy. It does have a little upper wick, and it's going to be interesting to see how that particular stock plays out. Tesla as well, it's stuck right in between both our bullish entry and bearish entry at those respective trigger points, but we do have an earnings announcement coming up in due course as well. So there is a lot of market action going on. You should be relatively happy with, or at least the outlook of this market is relatively constructive, and we're all sitting quite pretty at the moment with some pretty decent returns, not only on the market but also on a couple of individual stocks. If you have been paying attention to some of the broader analysis, which I do provide on this YouTube channel. But again, we're moving into earnings season, so it's best to be delicate, to remain delicate, and also to have the discipline not to hold positions over earnings. If you have any questions at all, email me, success@pivotpoint-trading.com. That will do us for this Wednesday afternoon market recap. Have a fantastic evening, everyone located right around the world. It's James signing off on behalf of Pivot Point Trading. All the best, everyone. Goodbye.